Joy Lab.
Hi, I'm Tonya. In this video, we're going to be making hoe cakes, also known as Johnny cakes. What are hoe cakes? What are Johnny cakes? They are pancakes, instead of made with flour, made with cornmeal. The ingredients are cornmeal, sugar, baking powder, salt, eggs, buttermilk, and bacon grease. You can't go wrong with a recipe where you're adding bacon grease. At least I hope not. I've never made this recipe before. It's from a new cookbook to me, but I think it will be fabulous. Let's get started. This recipe for hoe cakes is your standard baking recipe. You've got your dry ingredients you mix together, you have your wet ingredients you mix together, and then pour the wet ingredients in the dry ingredients, just like when you make pancakes or cookies or things of that nature. But if I'm going to go to the trouble to make a recipe of hoe cakes, then I might as well double the recipe and freeze some for later. Because when they turn out to be delicious, I would like to have some for other opportunities, just maybe when I want 1 or 2 in the morning, or even if I have company and I want 6 or 7 in the morning. They are easy to pull out of the freezer, pop in the oven, or even in the toaster to serve again later, and always have homemade hoe cakes on hand. That's the wonder of freezer meals. By doing the work ahead of time, you can have homemade goodness anytime you want, just by pulling it out of the freezer. Let's make this homemade goodness hoe cakes now. I'm doubling the recipe. The recipe calls for 1 cup cornmeal, 1 cup becomes 2 cups. I like putting my dry ingredients in Tupperware like this. I find it much easier to measure and scoop and level when I have the nice big opening like this. So for instance, I just need a tablespoon of sugar. Just scoop and swipe. 1 tablespoon of sugar becomes 2 tablespoons of sugar. A teaspoon of baking soda powder. Make sure your baking powder has not expired. The expiration date will be on the bottom, because if your baking powder has expired, your hoe cakes will not rise and they won't be fluffy, delicious goodness. 1 teaspoon, doubling the recipe makes it 2 teaspoons, and a ½ teaspoon of salt. See how much easier it is to scoop and level the salt as opposed to pouring it out of the container. ½ teaspoon, doubling the recipe, makes 2 ½ teaspoons. 1 teaspoon of salt. We'll whisk this together. There is no flour at all in this recipe. And I think that's pretty much the only difference between hoe cakes and pancakes. It's cornmeal instead of flour, which will be interesting when we try the recipe at the end. Our dry ingredients are all mixed. Now we're going to mix our wet ingredients together in a separate bowl. One egg becomes 2 eggs. Buttermilk is 1 cup plus 1 tablespoon. Does that extra tablespoon really make that big of a deal? Maybe it does. So I will put an extra tablespoon in. Doubling the recipe, 2 tablespoons and 2 cups. buttermilk. Now we need a tablespoon of bacon grease. And this bacon grease has solidified in the fridge. And you notice there's no little bacon pieces in it because I poured the hot bacon grease through a coffee filter. So easy, and it gets this beautiful bacon grease. But we need to melt it so that it can mix in with the wet ingredients. It's a tablespoon. I have my tablespoon left over from the buttermilk. I'm going to use that to measure the bacon grease and melt it in this little ramekin. It's okay that it has buttermilk. Because it's all going to the same wet ingredient bowl, and it's all going to be baked anyway on a griddle. One tablespoon bacon grease becomes 2 tablespoons bacon grease. Wait a minute, let me check the recipe. I'm glad I checked. The recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of bacon grease. We don't want to shortchange the bacon grease. So we have to double that. 2 tablespoons becomes 4 tablespoons bacon grease. Some of you may remember your mothers or grandmothers saving a jar of bacon grease by the kitchen sink and then just always adding to it. My mom never did that. I was fascinated when I'd go to my friend's house and their moms had this jar with layers of grease in it right there by the kitchen sink, right by the kitchen sink. And the rest of this bacon grease, a lot of it we're going to use to melt in the pan on the griddle to make it easier to flip our hoe cakes. All right, I need to melt this stuff in the microwave. I will be right back. It smells like breakfast. I think this is what's going to make these hoe cakes that much better. We've already whisked the dry ingredients. Now we're whisking the wet ingredients. Ooh, I splattered. Now what if you don't have bacon grease? I bet you could use canola oil or melt some lard. And maybe you're thinking, oh, Tonya, I don't have buttermilk. The secret is for every cup of buttermilk that you need, use a cup of regular milk and add a tablespoon of white vinegar. You'll always be prepared for hoe cakes. Add your wet ingredients into the dry ingredients. Now, you can see I'm using a very big bowl. Because with freezer meals, I often double or even triple the recipe. So I always need on hand a very big bowl. And if you don't have your very own very big bowl, I have a link in the description below and you can get one for yourself. All right, they say when you're making pancakes or even hoe cakes, you don't want to stir and whisk it too much. A few lumps are okay, and I think we're good enough. I'm going to go heat up the griddle so we can bake these and try them out. My griddle is hot and ready. I need to grease it down with some bacon grease. Could could use butter. Huh, looks like my countertop is crooked. Do you see that? My kitchen is slanty. Ooh, splattery. I love using cookie scoops. I have three different sizes. I'm gonna try with this larger size and also the medium size, a 1/4 cup and a tablespoon. These cookie scoops are wonderful because woo-wee, they make it so lovely. Your cookies, your hoe cakes come out the same size. I think this 1/4 cup is a little bit too big. So I'm gonna try the tablespoon cookie scoop. If you don't have a cookie scoops of your own, I have some with a link in the description below. It'll take you to Amazon. You can look and see what I'm talking about there for cookie scoops, and you could even buy them if you wanted. While these are cooking, I want to tell you why I'm trying a brand new recipe in front of all of you, not knowing how it's really going to turn out. Tomorrow I am going to my Cookbook Book Club. Every month we try recipes from a different cookbook, and this month it's Marcus Samuelsson's The Rise, Black Cooks and the Soul of American Food. Everyone is making a different recipe, and then we will have samples and try them all out. It's a wonderful idea for people who like to cook and try new recipes. I would recommend it if you have a bunch of friends or even one friend who likes to cook. Work through a new recipe book together. Let me show you what it's supposed to look like. Let's see. There we go. Hoe cakes. We'll see how close ours look to these. Oh, but they're smelling delicious. Just like pancakes, you wait for the bubbles to start to solidify as they pop through the cake. You can see that's happening in this guy, but not yet in these others. So let me try flipping him. It looks like the recipe in the book. Look. It matches. That means it's going to taste just as good. These guys look ready to flip. Oh, I like these tablespoon size better. I think especially for the potluck, since so many people are bringing so many different recipes for our Cookbook Book Club tomorrow, that if everyone ate one of these plus all 15 other recipes, we'd all be really full too fast. I'm going to make these silver dollar size hoe cakes the rest of the time. Although the size looks like more of a normal pancake. It's up to you. Freezer meals are all about adapting a recipe to the needs of your own family. All right. This is harder to tell if it's ready. Nope, a little bit more. The plan now is when they're cooked, I will put them on the cooling rack to cool. And once they're cool, the cooling rack with all these little hoe cakes are going in the freezer. Once they are frozen solid, I'll take them out and put them in a freezer safe baggie or a freezer safe container. You don't want air to touch your top layer of hoe cakes in the freezer, so use a press and seal or saran wrap or something of the like. press down on the top layer of your hoe cakes. And these are my favorite labels because they wash off in the sink or the dishwasher. There's no residue. The link below for some of these labels. And this is going in the freezer for another day. Then, whenever we want something special for breakfast, we can just pull 1 or 2 out of the freezer, or however many we want. Pop them in the oven for 350 degrees for about 10 minutes, or put them in the toaster. Even. That guy looks ready. And they will be delicious. If you don't have a griddle, I have a link to a griddle in the description below. If you don't have a griddle and you don't want a griddle, because they do take up space, you can use a skillet on the stove. Cast iron skillets are best, or just any old thing to heat up 1 or 2 hoe cakes at a time on the stove top. All right, I'm gonna try this little small one. You're supposed to serve them with sorghum syrup. Sorghum syrup, that's what the book says. Marcus Samuelsson's The Rise, Black Cooks, and the Soul of an American Food. It says to serve these with sorghum syrup. I live in Southern California and our grocery store does not have sorghum syrup. So instead, I can serve this with maple syrup. It doesn't recommend putting butter on them, probably because of all that bacon fat, bacon grease. I don't like syrup on my pancakes. I don't like that sweetness. I'm guessing I won't like maple syrup on my hoe cakes either. So I'm gonna try them just like this. Very good. A different flavor, definitely, than a pancake, and it's more gritty, not chewy. It has more texture to it though, but a nice flavor. I think I will put butter on it. And I'm still eating with my hands. Sorry. Very good. Almost think like some strawberry jam would be good. There's not a strong flavor, they're not ultra sweet, but they do have that buttermilk flavor, which is so delicious. These look just about ready to flip. Freezer meals are all about making your life so much easier. Have less stress and less mess at dinner time and also at breakfast time, because we are front loading the work. Do doubles of your recipe so that you have something on hand whenever you need it. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. It helps YouTube put my video in front of other people who are interested in making their lives so much easier with freezer meals. And I have links in the description below for video courses, cookbooks, and other resources to help you on your freezer meal journey. I'm Tonya. Thanks for watching. Very good. But I should do this. Wait, I should do this. Bye.
Joy Lab. Learning done right. Learn more with Joy Lab. Like, subscribe, comment, share. visit us at www.joylab.biz. Thank you.